Hey everybody, it's Steve Melia, and I am still in New Orleans, Louisiana. The plans have changed for the week a little bit because all three concerts now for the Dead and Company have been postponed. So my girlfriend Mary Beth and I and our dog Desi and many other Grateful Dead fans are still in Louisiana. So hey everybody, it's great to see you. Hey, do me a favor and share this. If you want to wait to the very end of the episode, that'll go about 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit longer, because I know sometimes you lose your signal when you share. Mary Beth pointed that out to me. And really just learning about Facebook Lives. And my goal has always been sort of my mission, my purpose, if you will, my why, is to inspire other people to live their dreams. That's one of the reasons I wrote my first book, 162, The Almost Epic Journey of a Yankees Superfan. Give me a like or give me a love if you read my book or if you have the book. And if you have the book and you haven't read it, I promise you, something that I hear a lot is people say, I was sitting there and I thought it was going to be about the Yankees and I thought it was going to be all about baseball, and I don't like baseball and I don't like the Yankees, so I didn't think I'd like your book. But I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. I finished it on 2 airplane rides, or I finished it in a day and a half, or my family thought I was crazy because I didn't talk to anybody for a couple of days. That's how much I loved your book. So I do hear that quite a bit, and it's really something that, I don't know, maybe is one of my most proudest accomplishments was writing my first book. And then, of course, I wrote my second book, which was a memorial, really, in memory to my brother Jim. So thank you so much for joining me today. It brings me to our topic today. And the topic today, if you could see from my hashtags, it's called Making Money on Purpose, or Discovering Your Why. If you've been watching these, I don't always necessarily come up with one title because there's a few different points that I want to make. And my whole goal, after doing this for a couple weeks now, and I'm doing 30 ways in 30 days, these are 30 ways in 30 days that you can really just be happier, have a better life, improve your life, enhance your life, design your life. Without knowing you individually, it's hard to say where your starting point is and what you're necessarily looking to accomplish. But I can promise you, I'm putting together the 30 best ideas that I've ever come across in my life. And I've been very blessed to have been mentored by and learn from some of the best of the best in the industry. In fact, when I first got involved in direct sales and network marketing, many of you know Darren Hardy was my brother and I's original sponsor. Darren was for quite some time, the editor of Success Magazine, and I learned so much from him. And now looking back and watching some of his material, I can see that. Jeff Olson, who wrote The Slight Edge, Eric Worre, who GoPro were the vice president, the president and CEO of my company. My brother Mike is a great example. My brother Mike's been around the personal development industry for many years. Milton Fogg, who wrote The Greatest Network in the World, was a personal friend of my brother Mike's when we first got started. I leaned on him for a lot of mentoring. Michael Klaus, who wrote Future Choice and a lot of other, personal development kind of programming. I've been very blessed. I've had a lot of people pour into me, and I think the thing that I was most fortunate with is at a very young age, I really figured out what I wanted to do. I figured out what my purpose was. And so I say all that to launch into our topic today, making money on purpose, or aligning your purpose with what you do every day. It's interesting that we call it work, and most people have a negative association with work, but there's other people that'll say things like, hey, find out or do what you love and you'll never work another day. And so I ask you, do you love what you do? Are you happy doing what you're doing every single day? And I think for a lot of people, there's a way to sometimes separate it. Maybe the activities that you do every day, maybe you don't necessarily love the work itself, but maybe it gives you opportunities to do other things, right? A great example is one of my business partners, Kim Melia. Kim and I have been business partners for many years, and she's one of the co-founders, as I am, of our foundation called Work, Play, Love. And I think that for her, the thing that she loves more than anything in the world is raising money and helping a particular orphanage in Guatemala. Now, if it wasn't Guatemala, it would be somewhere else. But she found her purpose. Doesn't mean that she doesn't love being an independent associate with Legal Shield. I think she loves that as well. But she does that to be able to give her the opportunity to discover what you love. And so it started back when I was 24 years old. My brother Mike, if you know my brother Mike, he talks a little bit like this, and the more I make fun of him, the more I actually sound like him, I believe. But Mike asked me to come work with him, not initially be his business partner, but to come work for him. And he had a seminar company, and we named that seminar company once I came aboard, Michael Melia and Associates. And I was the associate, and he was Michael Melia. And at first, he was the guy in front of the room, and I was the guy in the back of the room selling books books and signing people up and maybe working the phones, inviting people to our seminars. But the very first seminar that we did, and I believe it was June 13th of 1994. I could be off by a couple dates, but I think that was the date. It was called Falling in Love with Your Future. And we would call people up and say, are you in love with your future? We want to help you design and strategize and get the life that you want. But let's talk about what those things are. And then the second seminar we did, Mike, if you're watching, I think you remember, I think it was just 2 weeks later, was called Making Money on Purpose. So those were our first two seminars that we did, Falling in Love with Your Future and Making Money on Purpose. And it's been said, many places and in different ways that, again, if you can find out the thing that you love most, maybe you love to travel, maybe you love golf, maybe you love music, maybe you love art. I think you can see it so well with people that are maybe, in the art world, like photographers or artists or musicians, people that really, they love what they do and they're amazing at what they do. They were given a gift and they're using a gift. Now maybe you're an accountant and you're like, no, I really need to pay the bills. Music's not doing it. But you go out 2 or 3 times a week and you still play music because you love to play music. Or maybe you're the leader of the choir in your church. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be where you're making money from that particular activity. But I personally believe, and the advice that I'm giving you today in 30 Ways, 30 Days, is to discover your why, to what makes you unique, right? So let's talk about it. Your why. Your why, I've heard it said many times, your why should make you cry. It should make you emotional. Sometimes when you see, an athlete or somebody like that's been mega successful, they'll say, it was the values that my mother instilled in me. And the reason that we won this Super Bowl is I've had a picture of my mom up, she drove me to practice every day. And so their why is, they've discovered something that's bigger than themselves. And so whether it's helping children, or maybe you just love pets and you want to start a rescue, I'm encouraging you, if it's not your full-time job or your full-time career, what I'm encouraging you to do is start a hobby or start volunteering around something that you want to do. And I really truly believe that it'll make your life a little bit more fulfilling. So how do you figure out, first of all, before we get to the why a little bit more specifically, what your purpose is? Well, a couple pieces of advice. Let me say hi to a few people. I haven't done that yet. Hi, Lynn. It's nice to see you. Jeff Ivy. Jeff is a buddy that I've known for many years. Jeff works in production, in film production, and was often backstage at many of our Legal Shield and formerly, I believe, our TPN events. And Jeff, as I look at your name, I believe you're truly a great example of somebody that is very gifted at what they do and somebody that loves what they do. And I've gotten to know Jeff many, many times after events, during events that we've hung out. Wayne Gardner, nice to see you. Carla, Kevin Martin. Watch Darren this morning. The Almighty Encounter Success is all on one page, baby. I love it. Shout out to my buddy Darren Hardy. Lynn, nice to see you. Chris, Jonathan. I got Doug on. Michael. We've got a big crowd today. Anthony, nice to see you. Karen, I believe it was Anthony's birthday. Not mistaken. Thomas. And who else do we have? Jody. Man, we got a full house today. Great to certainly see everybody. I see Mary Beth is on as well, and Brody is watching. Wayne, thanks Wayne, I certainly appreciate that. And Lynn, I always say your why should make you come alive. It should really light you up. And for me, like if you're sitting around with me and we're just talking about, we're talking about whatever, but like I know when people ask me about my book and my 162 journey, and the writing process, I really come alive. And I never realized that writing was something that I love to do. I love communicating with people. I love sitting down and getting these 30 ways and 30 days ready. So for me, I know I wanted to inspire people. I know I want to help people live their dreams. And I believe at a very young age, I was just very fortunate to be able to find a career that allowed me the flexibility and the freedom and the independence to be able to do that. Now, how many times do we know people that have changed not only jobs, but now changing careers very so often? And again, I talked a little bit about it earlier. I just think it's because they're not happy. They just haven't found their calling yet, if you will. They haven't found out what fulfills them, right? And so at a very young age when I realized that I could have my own business. And again, I don't think that everything's for everybody or everybody is for everything. And so sometimes in my business, one of the things that helps us build our business is we recruit other agents, recruit other associates. And when people tell me no, I'm not upset. I don't think they're making a bad or wrong decision. I give them the opportunity just like I give everybody else the opportunity, because I know they have a purpose in life. Maybe their purpose in life and what I'm doing is not my purpose in life. And so, again, if people aren't joining you in your endeavors, that's okay. Everybody has their own path. And saying that, if somebody's along your path and somebody's working with you, whatever project that you're on, and then they discover maybe they have another why or another path, let them go. Let them go and go grow. Okay, encourage other people that whatever their passion is to encourage them to go out there and do that. I know I have a lot of stand-up comedian friends, and I'm going to tell you, making money in stand-up comedy is certainly not an easy path, but I have the utmost respect for people that get up on stage and they do that, and they probably keep their full-time job for a very long time. Sometimes they never even get rid of their full-time job, but the point being is I believe that those are happier people because at some part of their life, they're doing what they love, their sweet spot, if you will. And so think back to a time maybe you were 5, 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, and someone asked you, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And that's a great question. And at what point did we give up on that? At what point did we say, you know what, that's not possible? I'm going to tell you that anything and everything is possible if you can conceive it and you can believe it. I certainly believe, as Napoleon Hill, I believe, once said, that you can achieve it. If you can conceive it, right? If you can believe it, you can achieve it. I loved listening to Joel Osteen, or I think he even has his own radio program on satellite radio now, but I love listening to Joel Osteen because he said that God is a great God, right? He said God wouldn't put an idea in our head if we didn't have the ability to make that idea come true. Isn't that interesting? It's very, very encouraging to know that if we think it, we can actually make it happen. It might take a lot of time, might take a lot of resources, might not be the exact path that we hope for, but I certainly believe that is so true. So what makes you unique? What makes you special? What do you love to do? What do you lose yourself in when you're going out there and doing it? Maybe you already know. And all I'm going to do is ask you to do is to write down a few things. What is it? Is it helping other people? Is it travel? Is it, what do you love? What turns you on, right? What turns your light on? And then what I'd like you to do really as part of the exercise, because sometimes it's hard for us to discover it ourselves, our blind spots, if you will. So there's probably a few people in your life that you're very close to. Let's say 3 to 5 people, and I'm going to give you this as an assignment. I'm going to have you go up to 3 to 5 people and very simply, and ask them at a time where you've got them for a few minutes. Call up a friend and say, hey, listen, I'm working on a project. As you know, I'm always into self-improvement stuff, and I'm always finding out how I can be better and discover really what my purpose is. What do you think makes me unique? Right? And if you got friends that are wise guys, or if you have friends or people that aren't very encouraging to you, get rid of them. Now, maybe you can't do that, but find people that are very positive and people that are going to inspire you to do this project and say, what do you think makes me unique? What do you think makes me special? And I think that you'll hear things that you maybe didn't even know about yourself. And when they tell you, just say thank you. Don't argue with them. Don't say no. Say thank you. I really appreciate that. So your assignment today is to find out what makes you unique. Part of your assignment too is to really sit down and discover what your why is. And I'll tell you a touching story, a story that I don't share certainly with a lot of people, and I'll do that here in just a minute. If you haven't shared, now's a good time to do that. I would certainly appreciate it. I will go for a few more minutes. I see John Patrick on. I see Sandra. I see Doug. I see Tina Lee. Thank you for joining. Kimberly Quigley. How you doing, Kim? It's nice to see you. Tim Halligan. Tim's one of my buddies out of Chicago. Tim, can't wait to see you here shortly. Not sure when we're going to hook up again. But I'm going to tell you a story that's really a touching story. It's not necessarily a happy story, but it was when I first discovered what my why is, and that I really wanted to help people and work with people and just make the world a better place, if you will. As cliche as that might sound, is I was in West Orange, New Jersey, and I was going to be running a summer camp for 5 to 7-year-olds, and I didn't want to get a real summer job. And my sister Mary, who many of you know, called me and said, hey, listen, my daycare where Matt attends, and Matt was like 5 or 6 at the time, is they want to run a summer camp, and they're looking for somebody to head it up. And my minor in college was recreation. Why was it recreation? Because it looked fun and it looked super easy, right? So I took recreation, and so I called them up and I put together a little program of what I thought we would do over an 8-week period, and I loved it, and it really helped me, figure out some of the paths that I was going to take. But during that summer, something very tragic happened, and there was a woman that worked at Camp Playhouse. We called it Camp Playhouse. There was a woman that worked there, and her 14-year-old son one day took his life. He committed suicide. And, you hear about a lot of different people and a lot of different things that happen. And for me, it just hit me like a brick wall. I remember exactly where I was. I was driving a little Geo Metro at the time, and I remember hearing the news. One of my neighbors told me. One of my neighbors also worked for the camp. And I drove away devastated and thought to myself, how could a 14-year-old be so desperate that they didn't think the world was worth living in anymore? And I never met that 14-year-old before that, and I never discussed it with the mom. But for a very long time, that sat with me as just a very uncomfortable thing, and I wanted to make a difference somehow, and I certainly didn't know how I was going to make that, but I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to inspire people. I knew I wanted to not only let individuals, but families and people know that we're going to be raising families, hey, that there's more options and stuff like that. So for the first few years, that was my why originally, and I think that your why can expand. I think that your why can get bigger. I certainly now, I'm very proud to say that my family has raised over $500,000 for our charity, Work, Play, Love. We're making a difference today. There's 80 children that are in an orphanage in Guatemala, in a little village called Mixto, Guatemala. And I think it all goes back to that story at summer camp that it really came from when I started to put myself on a path. So thank you for all the loves, and thank you for all the likes. And I sort of almost got to shut down when I tell that story, because if I get too emotional, I'll certainly tear up. But here I am. That was 1990 or so, I think 1990 or 1991, and here we are, 27 years later, and because of that one story, that one why that I've held on to, I've been able to carry it. And since then, it's developed, and it's become stronger, I think you could say. But your why has got to, either make you cry, or your why has got to move you, and I guess I'll end with this. They say that the most important dash in life is the dash between the day we were born and the day that we die. And what do you want that dash to represent for you? My brother Jim passed away a couple years ago, August 2nd, 2013. And give me a like or give me a love if you knew my brother Jim, or if you've heard me tell stories about Jim before. And Jim was an incredible individual. We grew up, my parents, he was 4.5 years older than me. And when he was 12 and I was 8 or so, we moved from New York to Florida. And we grew up in a little town, Sebastian, Florida. We were from Long Island, New York, and we had our New York accents. And my brother Jim and I and my parents were like fish out of water down in Sebastian, Florida. Like the first weekend there, we went to a rodeo, and we're walking around in a rodeo, looking like definitely we were at a place. But Jim went to Florida State, and after Florida State, Jim decided what he wanted to do, and he started teaching. And eventually he became an administrator. And after he passed away, I got to meet so many of his students. I got to meet so many of his students' parents that I've become friends with, so many of his colleagues. And my brother Jim is a great example that somebody that was given a gift of working with kids. He was great at working with children, and really just being open with them, and being able to have both of almost a friendship with them, but a coaching and a disciplinary action or disciplinary skill set as well. And so he's a great example, I believe, of somebody that really found something that he loved, something that he was passionate with, and he was able to align his purpose with what he did to make a living. So thank you for all those likes and those shout outs. Again, if you haven't shared one of my posts, my goal is to share my message with 30,000 people, and it's been going pretty good. I've been averaging somewhere between 700 to 800 views on every one of my episodes. So how can you help me? If you're interested, you can help me by sharing. You can help me by viewing it more than once. View it 2 or 3 times. That'll get me over 1,000 a day. And if you've got a topic, or if you've got an idea, or if you just want to tell me a success story about something that we've talked about, today's day 17 of 30 ways, 30 days. If I've done something that in any way has encouraged you, or has inspired you, or has helped you, then it makes me feel better. One of the things that I love to do, and how I know I think I've discovered my why, is one of the things that I love to do is I love to speak in front of people at large events, and a large event could be 5 people. It could be, I think the biggest audience I've had the pleasure to talk to is about 20,000 people, or, up on stage, and sometimes it's for 10 minutes, sometimes it's for 45 minutes to an hour. But what I really love to do is spend about 2 or 3 hours up on stage, because it gives me time to get in some of my material and do that. And pretty early into my career in direct sales and network marketing, I knew that I loved to do that, right? Many of you know I'm with Legal Shield. Did I wake up one day and said, I want to represent lawyers for a living? No. When I first heard the idea of prepaid legal services, did it excite me? No, right? But when I saw the financial opportunity that was involved, and I realized that I could coach, mentor, support, train, encourage people to go out there and have their own business, a very successful business, that's the thing that sort of got me turned on. And so I remember just being on stage and having people come up to me, and this happens to me a lot, and I'm blessed, is that say, you know what, you've really inspired me to live my dream, and that's the only thing I could do. And when you see other people living their dream, like Lynn said a little bit earlier on one of her comments, they light up, right? They light up. And so I'm looking to light you up. I'm looking to get excited, right? Maybe you're in a fog right now. Maybe you're in the mud right now. There's only one way to get out of the mud. My friend John Addison said. John is one of the leadership editor at Success Magazine. I've had a chance to get to know John over the years, and John says, you can't crawl out of the mud, you got to explode out of the mud, right? And so I'm looking for you to explode out of the mud. If you're in a place right now, how do you get out of a hole? Keep digging, and the biggest thing that I want to go back to, and I'm going to end on this, is to go back, and it's one thing to listen to these, but it's another thing to really start doing the exercises and put these in place. And on the very first day that I shared this, I talked about success habits, right? Starting your day 4 ways, and making sure you write down your goals every day, 10 or 15 goals, your affirmations. Give me a like or give me a love if you currently do that right now. I saw my friend Carla on here. Carla tells me that she's been doing this since I started talking about it for 3 years, every day for 3 years, right? I know my friend Timmer does this as well. So writing down your goals, what you're grateful for, what you've done over the last 24 hours, and your affirmations. Doing those 4 things. Eliminating television, radio, newspaper, Facebook, email, your phone. Do not look at your phone until you do those 4 things. That's my advice to you, okay? And I know I keep saying I'm going to end on this. In closing, right? If you ever listen to motivational speaker and business philosopher Jim Rohn, I love it because he closes about 6 times. And what that does is it keeps his audience on the edge of their seat, if you will. But, Jim Rohn talked about this, and I just thought it was brilliant. He said he was talking to a friend of his, and he said, how much does that television cost you? And the guy thought about it, and he said, about $500. And Jim Rohn shook his head. He says, no, I think it's costing you about $20,000 a year. And the guy goes, what are you talking about? He got paid $500. He goes, no, the money that you're not making because you're watching so much television, it's costing you about $20,000 per year, right? You start breaking that down. How much are you paying every night to watch TV? How much TV do you watch? How much TV, do your kids watch? And I'm going to tell you something, that if you're really somebody that's living on purpose, and if you're somebody that knows your why and you're going for your why, you're not spending a lot of time sitting around watching the boob tube, okay? How much is your TV costing you? What is your passion? What makes you unique? What makes you special? I promise you, we've all been given a gift. We've all been given something, and maybe because of our outside surroundings, maybe it was our family, maybe it was a negative environment, maybe it was a teacher that said something bad to us once, maybe we've lived a smaller life than we've been capable up to this point. Well, guess what? It's time to turn it around. It's time to turn it up. It's time to hit the go button, whatever you want to say. Hit refresh. There's a book out called Hit Refresh right now, and I'm asking you guys to hit refresh. So if you like my message today, 30 ways, 30 days, go ahead and share it with a friend. Love you guys. I appreciate all the positive feedback I've been getting, and I will catch you guys down the road. Bye-bye for now.